What's going on, everybody, and welcome into Hog Hoops Live. I am your host, Curtis Wilkerson. You can find me over at HawgSports.com with Trey Biddy, Danny West, and Andrew Ellis. Is it time to hit the panic button on Arkansas basketball? The Razorbacks dropped their fourth straight game Wednesday night at Missouri. They have dug a deep hole for themselves to dig out of. We're going to break down that game, take a big picture look at where things stand with the Hogs, and try to figure out how in the world they can get this thing turned around. Let's go ahead and get started. All right. By this point, you know all the ways you can watch and listen to the show. Be sure to throw us a like, thumbs up, 5-star review. Those things really do help us a ton. We try to expand our reach, get out to all the Razorback fans out there. We definitely appreciate that. Is anybody frustrated? I'm frustrated, man. Is it time for the panic button here? I feel like it might be. If not, when do you press it? I guess maybe for me, it's more or less time to kind of recalibrate. Maybe that's the word for it. When it comes to, just what are reasonable expectations for this team, this roster. We'll see if it changes here in a couple weeks. But look, the struggles are real right now for Arkansas. They are. 4 straight losses for the first time since they hit that skid, without Isaiah Joe in Musselman's first year in 2019-20. 12-6 overall. They're 1-5 in SEC play. That's the worst start by far under Muss. Worst by an Arkansas team since, I believe, 2009. Shout out John Pelfrey, right? Arkansas is winless on the road. They're 0-4 right now away from home. LSU is the only other SEC team in the same boat. Last place in the league standings, tied for last, a third of the way into the conference slate. This is a battle for the basement coming against Ole Miss this weekend. Who would have thought that we'd be at this point right now? And look, don't get me wrong, a couple key injuries have absolutely not helped matters at all. Can't overstate that. Still hard not to wonder how the hell we got to this point. Still a good team, still a talented team. Frankly, we shouldn't be at this point. I don't think. Arkansas should not have lost that game at LSU to open SEC play. It just shouldn't have. It was an opportunity missed. Arkansas should not have collapsed at Vanderbilt, blown a 10-point lead at Vanderbilt over the weekend. Just shouldn't have happened. Those are the ones that you got to get, right? And, I think while it's probably one of the more excusable losses that Arkansas has taken, man, the Hogs shouldn't have lost that game in Missouri last night after leading by 10 with 5 minutes to go. I'm sorry. I don't care about the officiating. And we'll talk about it more in depth here, but, what we have here, I think, is a team that, man, they're still very talented. They're very capable, but it's a team that's young. They don't have an established identity right now, and they're still trying to get over that hump and find ways to finish games in the SEC, especially on the road. It's difficult to do. And look, that's part of the process with this group. But man, it's not where you want to be in late January. 79-76 loss at Missouri Wednesday night. Man, there were actually a lot of positive developments, I think, that came out of this game. It's just really unfortunate, that they kind of snatched defeat from the jaws of victory again. Arkansas had this game under control, and it just kind of unraveled on them down the stretch. Like I said, though, there were some positives. After Muss called the team out for essentially a lack of competitiveness at Vanderbilt, especially in the second half over the weekend, I was really impressed with the intensity they came out and played with at Missouri. The defense was dialed in, man. I think Missouri was having a hard time even getting shots off in the first half, unless Arkansas gift-wrapped them with some careless turnovers. And that's what really cost them in this game, especially early. 14 turnovers led to 18 points for Missouri in the first half alone. 9 of those came from your 2 primary ball handlers, Anthony Black and Devoe Davis. And listen, hey, credit to those guys for cleaning it up a lot after the break. But man, that number is just way too high. It's just too high. some kind of lackadaisical, casual passing, travel calls, getting ripped in the open floor. Just a rough start in the ball security department for a couple guys who played really, really well in several other areas of the game. The fouls started to mount up there in the first half on Arkansas. What'd they have? It was Council, Walsh, Kamani Johnson. So three of your key guys there. And then Pinion, when he came in, they all had 2 quick fouls in the first half. That's 4 guys, right? And so, hey, which reminds me, by the way, I don't want to forget, shout out to Darian Ford for really doing a nice job. Thrown into the fire there, for the last 8 minutes of the first half. And, Darian's he's a talented freshman. He hasn't played a lot, doesn't have a lot of experience under his belt. So you get thrown into a hostile environment on the road. You haven't gotten a lot of tick. That's one of those situations to me, where if I'm a coach, I'm just saying, hey, man, go in there. Don't make a bunch of mistakes. Just get us by, right? Just get us by. Don't be a liability. I thought he was an asset. He looked really good out there. He was up for the moment defensively. He brought that intensity. He's a physical dude now. And then he gave you a little bit of pop on the offensive end. He almost converted a 3-point play. Dropped just a little bit short. But, hey, he went up there and calmly sank a pair of free throws on the road in a close game. Good job. He had a tough left-handed finish in there. Good job. He did have one turnover, one miscue that it led to a dunk on the other end of the floor. But, hey, Arkansas had plenty of those in the first half. I thought for the most part, Darian Ford did a really nice job of kind of keeping Arkansas afloat. I think they were up by 1 when he went in, and they were up by 1 at halftime. Good job. They needed that because they couldn't keep other guys on the floor due to the fouls. It was crazy. But, like I see, Arkansas did get to the half with that 1-point lead, but it just felt like maybe an opportunity missed to have not built up more of a cushion. They played pretty well in the first half outside of the turnovers, but, man, when you hold down Missouri as well as you did, I think they were like one of their first 13 from the field. They couldn't really get anything going on that end of the floor. Arkansas, I thought, was scoring it pretty well, fairly efficiently. Man, I felt like they could have been up 6-8 points, maybe even more, but boy, the turnovers got them there in the first half. And then I thought Missouri really came out the aggressor in the second half, and they responded. They built up a 6-point lead. They hit a 3, got a turnover, got a dunk. Mizzou Arena was going nuts. It's a good crowd at Missouri last night. It forced a timeout, and, I think there was about 16 minutes to go in the game at that point, but I tweeted at the time, there was kind of a huge gut check moment for Arkansas because they have not responded well, to runs like this on the road all season. They haven't done it. They really came apart at Vanderbilt over the weekend, so it was like, okay, what's going to happen here? How are they going to respond? I thought they responded tremendously, as good as you could have expected or asked for. The Hogs really answered the bell, a 25-9 run after that timeout. So they go from down 6 to up 10 going into the final 5 minutes of the game. And you're thinking, man, they're going to get over the hump tonight. This is it. This is that turnaround. We see it every year. Wrong again. It took Missouri less than 3 minutes to come back and tie that game. They pull it out there at the end. Anthony Black had a look there from 3 at the end of the game. He got his defender in the air. I thought he might draw a foul, but, he didn't. Arkansas falls to 0-4 on the road. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of complaining about the officiating down the final stretch. Listen, if you know me, you know that I do not blame the official. That's just not my MO. I never use that as an excuse. I don't. And I won't in this game because there's a lot of things Arkansas could have done a lot better to avoid coughing up a 10-point lead and losing that game. But, okay, I'm not a crazy person. Some of that was nuts, right? I mean, some of it was. And so the things that people were complaining about, I agree with a lot of it. Some of it I don't, whatever. But, yeah, I'm aware of what went down there. In the last 5 minutes of the game, Arkansas was called for 11 fouls. Missouri was whistled for 1. Missouri shot 17 free throws. Arkansas, 2. I went back and looked at it this morning, and I think a few things can be true. First, look, Arkansas has a fouling problem. Okay, we can believe in the conspiracy theories all you want that, the refs don't like muss or the team chirps too much, so the Zebras are taking it out on them, whatever. But at the end of the day, I mean, we're 18 games into the season. Arkansas ranks 324th in the country in fouls per game. They rank 322nd in opponent free throw rate. This is not a new issue. It's been all year. The Hogs are aggressive defensively, and that comes at a risk. And yes, it's amplified in an SEC that averages more foul calls per game than any conference in the country. Absolutely. And again, a few things can be true. If you look at those 17 free throws for Missouri down the stretch, well, how did they occur? 6 of them came on intentional fouls that Arkansas had to make in the final 15 seconds. Those are legit. You had to foul there. 2 of them came after Devoe tackled a guy in the lane. 2 of them came after Devoe left his feet and fouled someone. They got into his body. 2 of them came after Anthony Black had to sprint back in transition because Sean East leaked out. He had a leak-out layup. AB had to get back there and foul him. You can't just give up a layup there. So a dozen of those off the top were 100% legit earned. Arkansas does have a fouling problem. 4 guys fouled out of this game. There were 33 total called. It is what it is. It's a pattern at this point. But what I will say is that there were 3 calls in that particular. There were more, I'll admit, throughout the course of the game. But in that final 5-minute stretch where Missouri came back and won it there were 3 calls that really stood out to me near the end. The first was the phantom foul on Mekhi Mitchell. I don't know. I feel like I could have walked through the gap between him and Golston on that fall-away jumper on the baseline. I don't know what they saw there. Maybe he had a hand on him on the drive. If so, then how is it a shooting foul? I don't think college does the continuation rule. Man, he missed the free throw. Okay, so that's good, but it fouled Mekhi out. And he played 35 minutes in the game. Arkansas needed him out there, so that was a big play. It cost them. Then there was the charge call against Devoe with 43 seconds left. The Missouri player was set. He took it, but I just have no explanation for how a replay did not overturn this play when the defender was very clearly inside the restricted area. That's tough, man. I mean, that goes from Arkansas shooting free throws to Missouri shooting free throws. That's a big swing right there, and I can't remember if the game was tied or it was a 2-point game. It was close, obviously, down the stretch. Man, they just didn't get that one right, unless I'm just completely missing something in the rules. And the last one that stood out to me, kind of in that final minute, was the 5th foul on Kamani Johnson. I mean, with 29 seconds left, Kobe Brown did get position on him in the paint. Kamani was stuck behind him, but he appeared to wall up. Right, he didn't look to initiate contact there, especially given how physical the game was. But Brown had position on him. He got the whistle there. That's probably the least of the ones that irritated me. But yeah, no, absolutely. There were some plays there that were killers. But Arkansas also could have done so many other things right to avoid being in a situation where that cost you. And that's life on the road in the SEC, man. That's how it is. Dennis Gates, Missouri's head coach, he was heated when they left Bud Walton Arena because, he felt like they got homered in Fayetteville. I don't know, maybe they did. Arkansas kind of got their taste of it there, but it's unfortunate. All they really had to do was take better care of the basketball, milk the clock down the stretch, and they go home winners in this one. They didn't do that. Anthony Black had the late floater. He hit the 3. He really kept things interesting, right? The final few seconds. He extended the game a couple times. Like I was saying earlier, he had his defender up in the air on that final possession. I thought he could have maybe gotten to his body. Once you get him in the air, all bets are off. I thought he might go into his body there and see if he could get that call and get to the free throw line. That's a lot of pressure to go knock down 3 in a row to send it to overtime, but it would have gave you a better shot than the 30, 35 foot or whatever it was there. It's one of those bang bang plays, in the final seconds. I don't know if maybe they could have called a timeout once they got it across half court there. They would have had 2.5 left. Maybe to draw something up on the side. I don't know. I think they had a timeout left, but AB took responsibility for the loss after the game. To me, as the point guard with a big lead late in the game, He knows it's on his shoulders to kind of navigate that stretch, maybe better than Arkansas did. I thought that was a sign of maturity from him to own it. I mean, I think there are many factors, some in Arkansas's control and some that weren't, that kind of played into that. But for him to just kind of wear it, that's a sign of a player that might be growing up a little bit. So I thought that was good. I mean, he flirted with a triple-double. He had 15, 8, and 7. Too many turnovers. I think he had 5. All but one of them were in the first half. It's still a growing process with him right now. Devoe was kind of similar. I think the only difference is he's a third-year player, more seasoned. He's been in these battles. 6 turnovers, even though the charge there was crazy. That's just too many. But, man, he hit some huge shots now. 18 points. He hit 3 3-pointers. He's quietly starting to heat up from 3 a little bit. When he's got his feet set and he's catching, shooting, he's in rhythm, it looks good coming out of his hand. People say he's taking too many shots sometimes, but to me, he seems like the one guy that's kind of willing and able to create one. He had 9 rebounds. He defended Hodge really well against Missouri's leading scorer in the backcourt. Outside of the turnovers, I thought he played really well. Council had 13. He battled foul trouble in this one. I thought he showed some things defensively that we haven't seen as much lately. Really active hands. I think he came up with 3 steals. He had a number of deflections when he checked back in the second half. Just a lot more engaged and active on that end of the floor. That's a good sign. But his last made field goal came with more than 10 minutes to play. And he didn't score in the final 5 minutes there when Missouri made their run. He made a couple free throws, I think, right before it started. And that was it. And that's a couple times that's happened now recently. Arkansas's got to have its leading scorer, be a factor in tight games like this late. They need him. Speaking of needing him, Jordan Walsh, he was incredible. He's a guy who's really, really struggled, especially offensively, in the last 3 games. He was incredible when he was on the floor. 12 points. He was 4 of 4 shooting. He knocked down a couple threes. He was assertive. He looked confident. But he fouled out in 13 minutes. And look, we can say there are ticky-tack calls against him, and that might be true. But man, this it's been an issue for him all season. At some point, you've got to adjust to the way the refs are whistling you. Through 6 games in SEC play, he's got 20 made field goals and free throws combined to 22 fouls. Like Muss said after the game, the way he was playing, his minutes would have been a lot higher if not for the foul trouble. When he's dialed in like that, the Hogs have to have him on the floor, and to only get 13 minutes out of him when he's playing as well as he was, that's tough. He would have absolutely been in there down the stretch. So, again, we see a young player, a freshman, with so much promise that's still got some adjustments to make, some growing to do. And the sense of urgency for it to happen is increasing with every game that passes. So, these downswings suck. I don't like it. I don't like covering it. I know the team's struggling with it. The coaches are ticked. The players don't like it. But was there some progress in the process at Missouri despite the loss? Yeah, I think there was. At the end of the night, you had 21 turnovers that resulted in 31 Missouri points. And the Tigers, fair or not, shot 40 free throws. I mean, those 2 things right there are just, it's hard to overcome anywhere, especially at home. I feel like the Hogs have kind of hit that mode. I was talking earlier about that. We just don't know what their identity is yet. Obviously, it changed when Trevin and Nick went out. And I think they're still trying to figure out exactly who they are. What's their MO? What's the DNA of this group? We've kind of hit that mode where different issues arise from game to game, and they just can't quite put together that full 40 minutes. People talk a lot about the perimeter shooting, and it's a weakness, right? Don't get me wrong. But you've lost 2 straight games here despite shooting 40% from deep with 7 makes in both of them. They were 7 of 18 at Vandy, 7 of 17 at Missouri last night. That anybody in the country would take that. So, you're getting better results from what was a major weak spot that was impacting the way teams were defending you But now other issues are kind of causing you. You know, at Vanderbilt, it was the defense that faltered. You know, gave up 63 points and a half. You know, kind of got lit up from three against Bama and Vandy. That had been a strength. Arkansas was a top 25 three-point defense in the country a week ago. Right? But at Mizzou, they kind of corrected that. Held them to 5 of 20 from three. This is a Missouri team that was second in the SEC and made threes per game and percentage. The defensive intensity was better. We talked about that competitive spirit that they played with. The on-ball defense was better than it has been. I saw some actual help defense at times. So then there's progress there in some areas they've been struggling, but you know, this time it was turnovers and fouls. So you know, have to clean those things up next time out without letting other areas slip. It's about putting that full 40 minutes of basketball together. You know, man, how does Arkansas start finishing these games? Because they've had, you know, at least 2 or 3 now. Boy, that you know, they probably really wish they could have back. I think some of the issue right now is I'm not 100% sure, you know, who the guy is for this team right now. Like last year, hey, listen, for better or worse, you knew in crunch time it was JD Notae's world. Give him the ball, let him rock. You know, and a lot of times that was going to be a shot. Sometimes it was going to be a poor one. But you knew he was a guy who you could count on to make a play with you, to handle the ball, to handle those situations. And right now, I'm just not entirely sure who it is. And that doesn't mean they don't have guys who aren't capable. You know, I think Council probably seems like the most logical option. He's the best creator, the best ISO guy. He's your leading scorer. But, you know, as we pointed out, he's kind of had a pattern here recently of disappearing a little bit, you know, late in games. I think Anthony Black is a guy who's capable. I think he tried to be that guy last night. We talked about some of the, you know, the plays he made down the stretch. I'm not sure if that's his wheelhouse, though. You know, he's just kind of a, you know, a well-rounded player as opposed to a takeover player. Maybe that's a, you know, an adjustment in mindset that he has to make. Not many 6'7" point guards out there that can do the things that he does. So maybe it's him. You know, Devoe, I think, you know, he wants to be, or he's willing to be that guy. You know, he has the experience. He's had the moments in big games. Is he your best option? I don't know. You know, if Arkansas was to get a healthy Nick Smith back, I think that would be your answer, right? And the hope is that they'll get him, you know, back at some point here. But I just feel like that's putting an awful lot on the shoulders of a freshman who's only played, you know, about 3 full games of college basketball. You know, he hasn't been on the floor or even with the team as he has been out, you know, in LA rehabbing for a significant period of time now. So if he does come back, you know, I think it's going to take a while for him to get rolling and get back in the flow of things, you know, with the team and just playing ball again. So you don't want to put so much on him right away if he does return. And then I think the question is, you know, will Arkansas be able to keep from burying itself before he does get back? I don't know. What I do know is that the big picture is getting really dicey really quick. So, look, if the NCAA tournament started today, Arkansas would be in. Sure. I think they're probably trending, you know, I don't know. I haven't looked after last night's loss, but they're probably trending on that 8-9 line. And I would imagine in most bracketologies. They're okay for the moment, but you got to kind of look at the big picture, and they're approaching worrisome territory when it comes to even making the dance. I'm sorry, they just are. I think they're going to get there, but they got work to do. They're still at 27th in the net. That's good. That's a strong number, but the resume, man, there's not a lot to it right now. 1-4 in quad 1 games. Then they're 3-2 in quadrant 2. The best win is San Diego State or an Oklahoma team that, you know, they're a bubble team at best. I mean, those are nice wins, but those aren't like signature wins, right? That's why I was really hoping they would pull that one out at home against Alabama. You know, especially you battle back. It's a 2-point game there, and they call that timeout under 5, and then, you know, the 3-point barrage happened, and it was a missed opportunity. But that's a signature win, you know. You know, so to me, there's just not enough beef from the non-conference schedule. You still got the Baylor game, but right now, there's not enough beef in that non-conference schedule to finish below 500 in the SEC and expect to get in. And some of you are probably like, what do you mean finish below 500 in the SEC? They're not going to do that. Well, they're 1-5 right now. Okay, so this slow start looms large for sure. I mean, they've got to go 8-4 at worst the rest of the way to get to 500. I mean, it sounds doable. But they got some work to, there's work to be done there. We're talking about those signature wins. I mean, there's 5 more quad 1 opportunities to help the resume, which is good. And Arkansas needs to take advantage of multiple of them to improve their positioning. But the problem is every single one of them is on the road where they're currently winless, and also the margin for error for slip-ups at this point is non-existent. So to me, yes, we have reached this point. Like the next 2 home games here against Ole Miss and LSU are 100% absolute must-win games. No question. Got to have them. It's got to be home sweet home in Bud Walton Arena, period. Yeah, I get it. You could lose every game the rest of the year and win the SEC tournament and get to the dance, whatever, but we're not talking about that. If you wanted a large bid, you got to win these 2 games. Have to. For many reasons. 1, just start stacking wins. 2, to start climbing the SEC standings. And 3, just to get some confidence and momentum back. Winning cures all, right? And these are prime opportunities for Arkansas to get it done. Ole Miss, not very good. LSU, not playing very well at all. I know they beat Arkansas on the road earlier in the year, but these are games that you should win at home. Schedule stinks, though. I got to thinking about it last night after Muss was talking about it in the post game, where he said, I can't recall a more difficult schedule. And on the surface, I was like, well, I don't know, man. I could probably recall some, but if you really think about it, Arkansas gets 4 of its first 6 on the road to start SEC play. That ain't easy. And one of the 2 home games was against arguably the best team in the country right now in Alabama. The other one was against a Missouri team that was ranked in the top 25 at the time. And so then you think, okay, well, it's going to balance out. And yeah, they give you 3 straight league games at home, which is nice here. But it's actually misleading because Arkansas gets Ole Miss and LSU at home in the next 2 games. But then they get that break. They've got to go play at Baylor in the SEC Big 12 Challenge. And listen, Baylor is not the national championship Baylor that we saw a couple years ago, but they're a really, really good team that plays in a really, really good league, and it's tough to win in that arena. That's a that's a tough game for Arkansas there. And then they've got a super quick turnaround. That's a Saturday afternoon on the road. You travel back home, and then you've got the quick turnaround for a Tuesday against a Texas A&M team that has traditionally been a bad matchup for whatever reason. For Muss and Arkansas, and they're also undefeated in league play right now at 5-0, by the way. Neat. So the challenges are there, not to mention Arkansas still somehow has road games after that at Kentucky, at Alabama, at Tennessee. And what the hell is going on? That's tough, man. So yeah, I mean, listen, I'm the first guy to say trust in Muss, but I also, like I said, I've kind of recalibrated my approach here. That while I fully expect, him to have the Hogs playing really good basketball down the stretch, I don't know that I expect them to rattle off 10 straight wins or 11 of 12 or whatever they've done in the past couple years. Just give him the gauntlet here. If they do it, give that man his Coach of the Year plaque right away. But the most important game on the schedule is the next game on the schedule. I mean, that's how they've dug out of these holes in the past. You take it one game and one step at a time. You can't, if you're a player or, a coach on the team, you can't think about the things that we're talking about here. You just got to go one at a time. That's all you can do. Control what you can control in the moment. So that means Ole Miss on Saturday. Ole Miss is 9-9. 500 on the season. They just snapped a 6-game losing streak and got on the board in SEC play with a win at South Carolina. So both Arkansas and Ole Miss are 1-5 in the league right now. The Rebels actually shoot worse from 3 than Arkansas by 0.1%. I think Arkansas is 29.8% and Ole Miss is 29.7%. I think they've made a few more than the Hogs, but, there's that. Listen, the Hogs are more talented. I think they're a better coached team than Ole Miss. The game is at home. I do have some concerns, though, about this one. To me, there is just nothing about an early 11 a.m. tip against Kermit Davis's 1-3-1 zone defense that sounds appetizing to me. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So I think it's going to be really important for Arkansas to show up ready to play and not coming out flat in this game. Early tip against that zone defense, boy, it's bothersome. Matthew Morrell is the name to know for Ole Miss. He's the only guy scoring in double figures for him at 15.6 points per game. He's definitely their go-to guy. He's taken more than 100 shots more than the next highest guy on the team. So he hoists it, man. He puts him up there. Good guard. He played for him last year. I think he was a freshman last year. Amari Abram is another guy to be aware of, capable of doing damage, a freshman wing. He had some monster games early in the season. I remember watching him over Thanksgiving break. They were at one of those, tournaments, kind of like Arkansas was out at Maui. They were at one. I think I watched him play Oklahoma. He had a big game. Maybe Stanford. He had a big game. See, he had some monster games early in the year. He's cooled off in league play, but he's a guy that's capable. But Arkansas's got to get it done in this one. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter how it looks. If this is, Ole Miss is a team that likes to slow it down and they don't score a bunch and they like to defend. And if Arkansas wins this game 45-44, who cares? Right now, it's just about kind of snapping that skid and just reversing course, right? And taking it one step at a time and progressing forward. So, all right. Let's see what we got in the chat. I wonder if people are mad about the officiating. Let's see. All right. Cody L. James says, don't press the button yet. We're going on a pretty easy stretch. Uh-oh, you just rolled off here. Man, it gets on my nerves when that happens. Yeah, I completely lost you. Well, hopefully I can come back and find you again. Let's try this. Tyler Miller says, Devoe needs to get himself under control. He had such a positive impact in last night's game, but he has so many boneheaded plays each game. That's Devoe for you. Man, you take the good with the bad. And I do think that, he's been mostly really solid for Arkansas in SEC play. He's had some of those games where he's taken a ton of shots, and, maybe you like to see that reeled in a little bit, but, somebody's got to do it at this point. I thought outside of the turnovers, he was really good last night. But you're right. He's a third-year guard. You can't have 6 turnovers in a game. Man, if you take that away, you just cut those in half. 3 turnovers is still a lot in a game, but you cut that in half and you look at the rest of his stat line, you're like, man, he played great. So Jonathan Parker says, we only score like 5 points the last 3 minutes. Can't win games that way, even with good refs. Yeah, I agree. I think Missouri scored on, what was it? Like they scored on 11 of their last 12 possessions or something. I think they had in that 5-minute stretch just 3 made field goals, 3 made baskets from the field, but I think they were 15 of 17, from the line. But, Arkansas had opportunities there to match them, right? And they didn't really do that. They weren't able to get to the line that much. And that's something else that I looked at. Maybe there was a couple things here or there that, could have been whistled that sent them to the line, but I didn't see a ton of it. In a lot of instances, Arkansas, they were kind of turning it over or, settling for jumpers. But yeah, you got to execute better down the stretch, even if it's 8-on-5 or whatever in the final 5 minutes. Boy, when you have a double-digit lead, you still need to be able to pull that one out. I agree. Dustin Hoofman said free throws and rebounding were much better. Once this team finds some wins, they will be a dangerous team. Can't give up on them and expect them to produce. Yeah, the free throws were great. Were they like 23 of 26? They were almost 90%. They've been shooting like 62% in SEC play, so that was good. The rebounding was good. You knew they'd have an advantage there. Missouri really struggles on the boards. Arkansas out-rebounded them by 20, which is good, and they had 13 offensive rebounds. but they really weren't turning them into second chance points. And I think that was one area that they could have done a better job at, is, securing those and taking advantage of the extra possessions. They didn't do that as well as they did against Missouri in Fayetteville. Calvin Whitaker says, we will start a 4-game winning streak starting Saturday against Ole Miss before the Baylor game. I hope so. Yeah, I mean, I think, I do projections or predictions or whatever before every game, and I'll absolutely be picking Arkansas to beat Ole Miss and LSU. But is their first road win going to be at Baylor? It could be. They're fully capable, but is that the one they're going to get over the hump in? I don't know. I hope so. And I worry a lot about that quick turnaround, with Texas A&M, because, I think Arkansas is a more talented team, but for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but that style of play, from the Aggies, man, gives Arkansas fits. It did 2 years ago during the COVID year when A&M wasn't good at all. And they gave Arkansas a lot of trouble. The Hogs won that game in Bud Walton Arena last year. They lost at Texas A&M. Was it an overtime game in Fayetteville? I think it was. Arkansas won, but man, it was a dogfight. And then the Aggies just beat the doors off of them at the SEC tournament. For whatever reason, it's just a weird matchup. So, playing an important game on the road at Baylor on a Saturday, then having that Tuesday turn, that's tough. It's a good thing it's at home, though. Obviously, that helps. To be at Bud Walton Arena always helps. Gil McGarity says, do you think Muss would be here next year? I certainly think so. I don't know why he wouldn't be. I think, with some of these openings that may or may not happen, people are probably going to come after him. Who knows what's going to happen with this Texas situation? Rodney Terry, the interim, is doing a pretty good job over there right now. They're going to have a ton of interest in that job. I know, Muss is probably on that short list. I don't know if that's a job he would take, though. It could be. A lot of people were talking about Kentucky and, whether or not that's going to open up. Looks like Calipari's kind of starting to get that thing turned around. As soon as people gave up on him, they whipped up on Tennessee on the road and beat Georgia. So we'll see what happens there. But, when you have success like Muss has had, there's going to be opportunities out there for him. But like I've said in the past, man, I think he understands, he's kind of got a pretty good situation here at Arkansas. And I also think that they're going to pay him. And he's making top 10 money, or at least he was when he signed his initial extension. But I would be surprised, if there wasn't a raise on the table here at some point. Let's see here. Tim Eskew says, Curtis, Missouri. I'm from Missouri. Well, hey, listen, brother, I lived there for 15 years, so I think I know what you're getting at here. It says, Missouri can't do this to me, and certainly not at 10:30 p.m. Razorback fans have a constant desire to blame the officials for every loss. The reality, we foul a lot. We were 320 in the NCAA in fouls per game. It's a lousy characteristic of this basketball team. It's a Razorback program, not an officiating problem. I think I hit on some of those stats earlier. Arkansas has a fouling problem. They absolutely do. It's interesting because in past years, Arkansas has always been good at getting to the free throw line under Eric Musselman, right? But they've also been pretty good about keeping opponents off of it. So that disparity has always been in Arkansas's favor. And this year it's not. And some of that is the give or take, with the way that they play defense, because they're so aggressive. They like to be disruptive. That's naturally going to lend itself to more fouling. And there's some discipline issues there too, in terms of, keeping guys in front and taking the right angles and, not being overly aggressive and picking your spots to reach and everything like that. That's all fine. Here's my thing. If Arkansas is going to foul a lot because they're being overly aggressive, I feel like they need to kind of balance that out by reaping the benefits of being aggressive, which means generating a bunch of steals and turnovers, right? They were doing that at the beginning of the season at high rate, top 20 in the country, in generating those, and it was fueling a lot of the offense. So we weren't seeing a lot of these issues, with shooting and executing the half court because they were generating turnovers. They were getting out in transition and converting. Well, Now they're playing better competition with better guards, experienced SEC players who aren't coughing up the rock at such a high rate, but they're still fouling. So they're kind of falling onto the wrong end of the spectrum with that right now. And I do think that's an issue that they've got to work on. They've got to adjust to. I don't agree with all the calls last night. I think 56 fouls and 66 free throws combined in a game is absurd. It's not good for viewing. Did anybody enjoy watching that game last night? Just from a pure, like, man, I want to sit and watch a basketball game. If it was any other two teams and I was just watching it casually on a night, I probably would have turned it to a different channel. It was brutal. So, that's kind of irritating, but I mean, it is what it is. Joey Moses says, too much dribbling. This team does not know how to pass the ball. How many times did number 4 just take off and stumble and dribble off his feet? Yeah. Well, they struggle with the zone, in just terms of, consistent player movement off the ball, I think leads to better movement on the ball. So, definitely something to work on. Daniel Wilkerson says, always going to have haters no matter what. Yeah, this is true. Zachary Beeler says, our ball handling has got to improve. Yeah, you definitely don't want your backcourt to be getting, ripped in the open floor like we saw a couple times last night. Tyler Miller says, why was Mikal not getting any time? Yeah, Mikal's a guy who, he start the last 2 games, I thought he did pretty well. He's a presence on the interior for Arkansas. I think he's a good rim protector. He got exploited a little bit, especially against Vanderbilt, when they were kind of dragging him out on the perimeter and taking advantage of him. That's where they were hitting some of their threes. In this game, I think Muss was asked, he kind of got ticked off by the question, was it an injury or was it a coaching decision not playing him? He's like, no, it's a coaching decision. Missouri plays 4 guards. I think they're just a fast team, an up-tempo team. Even, they play Kobe Brown at center a ton. He's a small forward, power forward kind of guy. He can take it out on the perimeter and shoot threes and dribble it. So there just wasn't a great matchup, I don't think, for Mikal in this game. I think that's what it was. Let's see. Scrolling through, a lot of conversation in here. I like it. Jonathan Parker says, do you still believe they can make the tournament? Yeah, I absolutely believe they can make the tournament. Like I said, listen, I've gotten to this point the last couple years, and it's usually when I hit this point where Arkansas really turns things around, right? It's where I'm like, man, I don't know, I'm not seeing it. And then all of a sudden they go on a crazy streak. Well, here I am going, man, I don't know, I'm not seeing it. And it's not I think they're going to lose every game the rest of the year. I don't feel that way at all. Like I said, I think Muss is going to get as much as he can out of these guys. I think they're going to be playing good ball. But I don't know if I see that huge winning streak that kind of puts them back in that top 15 range, that 3 to 4 seed range. Just with the schedule, the way it lines up, man, that would be some really impressive work if they did that. But do I think they're going to make the tournament? Yeah, I still believe that they will. I do. I think they're going to, rattle off a few wins here. I think eventually all you got to do is get one on the road. You just got to taste that victory and just kind of figure out how to do it to get over that hump one time. And then maybe you can pick off a couple of these quad 1 wins and be in a good spot. But yeah, if I had to kind of say where I think they'd wind up at this point, I think, maybe in that 8 to 10 seed range, which is not necessarily where you want to be, but hey, you get there and all bets are off. Yes, this is a good point. Jonathan Parker says, notice Ricky had either a heating pad or something on his back at least one time on the bench. I noticed that too. I wonder if it's one of those, maybe like heating, like a little massage type things. I've seen several guys on the team like wear those during warm-ups at home games this season. I wonder if, maybe just if his back was getting stiff or whatever, because he got in foul trouble there in the first half, sat for a long period of time. Maybe that's just a way to keep him loose or something like that. I thought I saw him maybe stretching a little bit too at one point in the second half. So I don't know, maybe some back spasms or something there. I did notice that too. I'm glad you brought that up. Dustin Hoofman says, my only question is this: how big of an effect has this slide had on recruiting? I mean, I don't think any. It's the 2023 class is already signed, sealed, and delivered, right? I mean, you got Blocker, you got Fall locked up. The transfer portal season is what it is. That's just opportunities for guys. And so I don't think they really look at that. They know that Arkansas is going to have a talented roster and an opportunity to compete every year. And then if you look forward to the 2024 guys, if I'm only in my junior year of high school, I wouldn't care too much about, how the team was doing, in the present when I'm 2 years away from being there. I don't think it's really had an impact. Now, if they completely tank the rest of the year, then maybe that's a different conversation. You want to have momentum going into the offseason. I think that's one thing Arkansas has been able to capitalize off of, making these deep NCAA tournament runs, right? The transfers see that and they're like, hey, man, I want to come be a part of this. They get out on the grassroots circuits, the AAU events, and, kids watch March Madness and they say, oh, man, yeah, Arkansas, you guys are in the Elite Eight. So I think that kind of momentum matters, but no, I don't think it's been a big deal for them yet. I haven't sensed that, at least. James Ladon Childers says, our bench played 28 minutes and Mizzou's bench played 84 minutes. I wonder why our bench is not developed enough to give Muss confidence playing more. Well, I think part of that is because you have two guys out right now. So that makes you go two guys deeper into the bench. And the further you go down the bench, the less, I don't want to say talented because it's not a good word for it, but, experienced or ready, those guys are. If you think about the beginning of the season, or, if Arkansas was at full strength, you probably have Nick in the starting lineup, which probably means, Devoe is a hell of a six man for you. I mean, they were bringing a guy like Trevin Brazil off the bench. And so you just think about that right there. Boy, it's a really good top seven without even getting into some of these other guys like McHale, Kamani, Graham, when he decides he's ready to play, and Pinion, whoever. So I think it's attrition is a little bit of a factor into that for sure. Let's see. Cody L. James says, I know you said it's a lot to put on NSJ if he comes back, but the games he has played, his attitude, man, you rolled off again. There we go. His attitude says he wants to be that dude. Oh, yeah, for sure. He's a killer. The thing about Nick Smith Jr. is he is ultra competitive. That's the one thing that always stood out to me, even when he was in high school or, just watching him play in random, June AAU tournaments. Like, he is competitive. The dude is out to win. And he doesn't shy away from those moments. He'll be that alpha. And so I agree. Still a lot. It's a lot to put on a guy's shoulders, when he just hasn't played much or for so long. But I mean, he's projected as a NBA lottery pick for a reason, right? So hopefully he gets back healthy. All right. I think we got through most of them there. Again, sorry if I didn't get to your comment. These things are rolling off. Sometimes I miss some, but I think we covered a pretty good deal. So anyway, 11 a.m. on Saturday, Arkansas and Ole Miss at Bud Walton Arena. Hogs got to get over the hump, right? It starts by winning a couple at home, getting that confidence back, and the big game at Beeler next weekend. I will be there. So we'll see what happens here. In terms of the show, I'm tentatively planning on doing a live reaction from Bud after this Ole Miss game. And then I would like to do something to preview Beeler, and then obviously I'll be at the Beeler game, so we'll catch up with you from Waco. Hey, appreciate you guys as always for tuning in to Hog Hoops Live. Enjoy the show, enjoy the interaction. Appreciate you guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and let's see if the Hogs can get it done on Saturday.